in learning to give, we also are learning more heavily upon our Heavenly Father and less heavily upon ourselves. Those who have traveled the Calvary road for any length of time surely can testify to the truth that God is ever faithful. Not only so, but as we weekly set aside our tithes and offerings, we are reminded that all we are or ever hope to be is a gift from God. Furthermore, as Moses communicated to the children of Israel, we tithe so that we may learn to revere the Lord our God always. Deuteronomy 14:23. As we all know, learning to revere the name of the Lord is a timeless principle and critical today. As in the days of Moses, long before Moses, the Bible recorded Jacob's promise to God. Of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. Genesis 28:22. Long after Moses, Jesus reaffirmed the practice of tithing. Matthew 23:23. Not for an outward appearance, but as an outward expression of an inward reality. Additionally, in the 4th century, the great church father Jerome echoed the words of Malachi, who imitated the following: to pay tithes and offerings was tantamount to refuse to pay tithes. Failing to pay tithes and offerings was tantamount to robbing God, a prescript for financial ruin. Malachi 3:8. Finally, it should be noted that tithing in the Old Testament not only prepared God's people to become hilarious givers, but produced a temple of unparalleled splendor. The Israelites, who pined for the pleasure and protection of the pagan Egypt, more than for the one who had miraculously parted the Red Sea, had been transformed into a joyful giver. The Bible chronologues the prayer of David as he thanked God for the very privilege of being able to give to the work of the Lord. But who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. And now I have seen with joy how willingly your people who are here have given to you. 1 Chronicles 29:14-17. What began as a spiritual discipline had evolved into sheer delight. There is no telling what can be accomplished in our generation if we too may but catch the joy of awesome giving. Not only would we be empowered to spread the gospel around the globe, but we would be able to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and care for the sick like our forefathers, who founded great centers of Christian education, established countless hospitals, funded myriad relief organizations. We might yet leave an indelible mark on our generation, for only when the training wheels of tithing come off will the world of free will giving become our playground. So anyways, as God's elect and very elect, we need to take off our training wheels, so to speak, and go out in the world, and feed the poor and the needy. New Testament and the Old Testament communicates this fact, that as Christians we're not doing our part to feed, to take care of the poor. And it's high time that we get back to these things. It has been proven that a constitutional monarch or a constitutional empire makes individuals more successful than other forms of government. And so we need to think about the poor. We need to make sure the poor and the old can get health care for the many things that might come their way. And it is also important that we try to give more. Now, you don't have to tithe Now, that doesn't mean you have to tithe, or that tithing is somehow mandatory anymore, because in the Old Testament, tithing was more than just money. But it's a start. 10%. And then when you develop the discipline of tithing, you might, so to speak, venture out of the shallow water into the deep, slowly and gradually, to get to the point of hilarious giving. Because if God's elect and very elect go, take off the training wheels and go past that, it's amazing what kind of things we could accomplish in our generation. And then passing on that discipline to the next generation. Now, tithing doesn't necessarily mean money or cash, or it could be other things. There should be, even in government systems, provisions for the poor and the elderly, because we're called to protect, to feed, and care for the poor and the elderly, the handicapped, the mentally ill, etc. Not those who are able-bodied workers who can go out and work, but those who, one way or another, can't help themselves. There is, of course, a class system in the United States of America and the European countries. First class, second class, third class. And God has set these things in motion. However, Christians are not second class or third class citizens. Christians are first class citizens. But it is mandatory that God's moral and civil law should be the law that governs the land, the world. And in that, system, there should be provisions to help safeguard, protect, and feed the poor. And Christians should have a poor spirit, should be humble, should be people of temperance and moderation, mild manner, so to speak. And if Christians would just put, and I'm not saying weekly, starts with once a month, setting your tenth aside first to give to the work of God's ministry. And that doesn't necessarily mean the church that you go to, but other Christian organizations that are doing something, helping people, feeding the poor, protecting the poor, feeding the poor, and so forth. And that doesn't necessarily mean money. It could be other things. Giving to the work of ministry. And then moving from once a month to once a week, if possible. And then going to the point of taking him off the training reel